There you go. It says broadcast is live.
Okay, I think we're live. Hello, everybody. This is Eyal. I host with Vivian the AI Enterprise AI Virtual User Group. I also host the Jacksonville Java User Group. And I have here a couple of people, and hopefully some others may join us later. These are people that either you've seen before as speakers or participants in previous presentations that we had, and if not, you will see them in the future because we will have them presenting this coming year. And this is a pre-recorded session. We are going to now sit and talk about issues that we normally discuss among ourselves, which have to do usually with AI, machine learning, Java, enterprise software. And each of these people brings some unique angle. And it's always fascinating for me to talk and hear what they have to say, what they've been doing recently. And we thought that for the holidays, since we can have this month a live session as we usually do and a presentation, we will just record this session of sort of like a live, a video podcast, let's call it, and you can later watch it at your own time. So let's just get started with Mani and Suyash. Can you guys just tell us quickly, or as briefly or not as you want to about yourself? Start with.
Sure. So my name is Suyash. I work at Oracle, this one, and work in developer relations team as an advocate. And I've been very passionate about Java since I was a software engineer working at Oracle, writing Java for mobile applications, iOS and Android. And that's an interesting story in itself, how we made a cross-platform framework with Java. And for the last 2 years, I've been getting more involved into machine learning out of personal interest, and now it's part of work as well. And I try to talk about Java, developing modern Java apps on the cloud, and how to integrate machine learning with that, especially for software engineers. So yeah, and it's a pleasure to talk to you guys because we all share similar interest.
Great, thanks for that, Suyash and Eyal. And so, like Suyash, I'm a Java developer as well, and I've been doing this for quite some time now. So my story is a bit slightly different, and maybe even overlaps with what Suyash and others have been doing here. So I used to be doing a lot of backend software engineering work, but now since the last couple of years, I also do work with data and machine learning, and kind of trying to blend my passion for Java and machine learning and AI and put them all together and make it part of my freelance work, which is what I've been doing since the last few years. Previous to that, I've been working in small to medium-sized to large companies as a permanent employee, and now I've taken everything on board to do it myself as a consultant. And yeah, we share quite a few interests, and we present at lots of different events individually or in a serial manner sometimes. This year, particularly, I've had the chance to present quite a lot of events, all of them overlapping with Java and AI. And yeah, it's great to come to a session like this where actually Suyash has been constantly organizing this since last year, I will say. And the group's been constantly changing, and then most of it was unrecorded, and it was great that Eyal accepted the idea of picking this up as a unofficial video podcast, AI/Java Rant, and of course we'll have another guest joining in soon as well. But I think we can get going with our conversations that we normally have, and yeah. So whatever you do, Suyash.
So indeed, just wanted to say this really is making it into what it is now. Recording this session is Mani's idea. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Eyal, for taking it on as well.
And you know, maybe I can take advantage of this opportunity and ask you a little bit. You said that you're doing freelancing with AI and machine learning, among the rest. So can you maybe give us some ideas how, let's say that you there's somebody comes and says, I have all kind of projects. I do AI, I do mundane things. I build a web application that does, goes in the database. Depending on, it could be different things, banking, different areas, but I want to introduce some AI or machine learning in there. I want to have a added value to make the application more useful, more interesting, more convenient to use. How do you go about finding ideas where to inject AI or how to take advantage of AI? What are common maybe use cases that you've seen, or what would you recommend?
So that's a very interesting question, Eyal. Just recently, before COVID kicked in, actually early this year, I was approached by someone from the property industry. And what they do is, I can't give you the exact details, it's an official company. It's like above board and everything. They lend money to different property development organizations, and they get an interest on that. And it's actually more like crowdsourcing. So people actually put their money into this fund, and they actually lend it out. And then whoever puts in money gets an interest, and whoever lends the money, they pay the interest to this central organization. And so they're actually cutting the bank out of the picture, and they're cheaper than the bank, and they're a lot less paperwork and everything. So they wanted me to do some kind of work for them. And so is it just like you said, they were coming up with a similar thing, like, we want to introduce AI and automate our manual processes that we do, and whatever manual processes they do. And so I had to take the bull by the horn in a whole different way. Like, I wouldn't like say, okay, let's start installing this project, this package and that. And so I wanted to understand their workflow. So that's where I start with. And I had to understand what exactly the question, like, what value will it bring and why are they doing this? So one of the things they wanted to do it is because they wanted to automate and they wanted to improve, because what they're doing currently is they're using all kinds of manual labor to analyze the whole process from application acceptance to approval. And then after that, they have to monitor that process as well, because, there'll be late payments and all those things. And so I actually had all kinds of other things that I asked for them. And mainly it's how do they have their current data, and how far back the data goes, and how much of that is automated, how much of that is manual, because you'll be surprised to know a lot of that is still on paper. They have not digitalized it yet. And a lot of that is actually written text, which has got lots of graphs and numbers in it. And so you can already understand this is now leading to not only big data, but also unstructured text. So, and as I'm throwing these questions, I'm already processing what are the different small things I can do, but I'm not feeding it to the client because I don't want to give them high hopes and expectations and give them a bias in their thinking. And so I would take the big problem and I would try to ask them to collect data in these right positions that I want them for the creation of the initial data sets. So the initial conversations will be only locating the data and data collection. What we're going to be doing with the data is not even going to be discussed, and we don't even know, because this is the discovery phase. So when someone like that comes to me, this is all I do, and we spend a lot of time on that. And this is very important, because I also tell them that, like, at the end of this process, we might even decide not to do this. So let's do this properly now and assess if you actually really need AI to improve your business, because maybe what you're doing is very well and good with your manual and few automated tools, and maybe through some additional software. Because I already tell them, look, buying is better and cheaper than building. So let's discover this to find out whether we need to do build, or only buy. So that way I'm very clear and transparent about how I'm going to go about with this, and not like shoehorn them into AI and give them a big bill, right? So that wouldn't be fair.
So when you say buy, you mean there are AI packages, or
No,
you use like
external
AWS,
software. Like, for example, there are lots of small pieces of software we can buy for solving different parts of the problems that they already have now, to automate those problems, to digitalize those problems, and maybe eventually tie them up together. And we might not even need AI in the beginning, right? It'll just be, what is it called? Application installation, configuration, integration, what we do in the enterprise world, but maybe for a small, for a small setup. So you buy one package at a time. You analyze this thing. There's already a software package available. We don't build it. We just use a service that already does it for us, and we just use that service. Next, okay, this is this package, and so on. Then we fill the gaps with custom software, or maybe build by, or maybe only build. So we fill the gaps, and and also I have conversations with them. Are you happy to do open source? Because when you do open source, we've got lots of options as opposed to closed source. And then and then I also tell them that, look, I won't be building everything. There'll be some things I already have. I'm just going to reuse it. Are you happy with that? Because the customer needs to know way in advance where you're getting them into, right? And then what is your budget? Like, what do you already have? Do you already have an infrastructure? Do you already have a team that can handle certain things? Or do you want me to do everything for you? And things like that. So, but those are logistic questions for later on. But the initial bit is data discovery and build by, build, or buy kind of questions. And that kind of helps a lot, because it helps to understand whether they really need AI, they really need me in the picture or not, right? Because sometimes that conversation ends up them discovering, actually, we don't need this guy, because we might just end up using this package, and I've had a project like that where I kept telling them, look, I don't think I need to work with you, but they kept getting me into meetings, and we did a few meetings, and I then gave them a whole checklist of things they should do, and I'm actually realizing they are not calling me for the next 3-4 weeks. That means they're already executing it, which is great, because I would know that if I picked up a package like that, I'll be hand-holding and telling them what to do and waiting for things, and I'm actually not writing a single line of code in that whole process, which is boring, right? Because you, me, and Suyash, we want to get our hands onto stuff and do stuff, and not like meetings and project management and emailing people. Is this done? What's the progress? Come on, this is not AI or Java. This is project management. I don't do that. I mean, it's a great thing to do. It's a great thing to do, but it's not the remit, right? They came to me for a technical solution, and then I'm doing like project management. Then but I already give them a solution for something like that, and then it saves them a lot of money.
I like the point, Manny, you mentioned about not building everything from scratch, and also not throwing AI at everything, because the industry, it is going with the media hype. A lot of people, they just want to use AI, and it is not the best tool for all things, right?
No, it's not like a nail and a hammer, that everything you see, you hit it with a hammer. Everything's not a nail, and you don't need a crane to crack a nut, right? This is exactly what's happening in the world. Like, you don't need state of art, whatever the state of arts are, to solve a problem. Even the state of arts are not perfect, and so so I have to be fair with my clients as well, because I'm expensive at the end of the day, and if I give them a wrong solution, I get a bad reputation in the industry, right? And it doesn't give me pleasure to like shoehorn them into something. I enjoy when I give them a solution that they actually thrive with, and they get multiple times benefit than they paid for. Because then I can also write about it, right? Saying, hey, we created this solution, and it has actually optimized their performance and their production by so much, and I already now developed a solution that is a creation or an invention, rather than bill them for something that they could have already bought, like an online service, which will cost them 1/10.
So let's talk about some of the services. Maybe we can go to the services EL was mentioning earlier. EL, you dropped some names. Some of them are paid offering, and some of those make life easy for developers, right, who don't need to be like AI ML experts. And then the other side of thing is where, okay, the frameworks are there, open source, and now you learn how to put them together and build it. EL, do you want to talk about it, or Manny?
Yeah, let me just start perhaps with those. I'm going to share my screen and go with that.
You're dropping off a little bit, EL, sometimes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll stay off of this screen so you can see my screen. And what you see here is the low-hanging series. I hope that's what you see. And I just in this project. Do you see that? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay. So this was a project of several developers that have communities, and they share some of their stuff with the community. And we decided to write this series of what we call low-hanging books So it's at lowhangingbook.com, and you can also have this, if anybody wants to go there directly with this QR code, can use that and go there. So these are very, very small books. They're ebooks that are maybe 10 to 20 pages long. And they deal with different subjects. Like here you have software architecture, how to give talks, code smells, Java challenges, and then this is the book I wrote, which is machine learning. It's actually machine learning for Java developers. This is something I want to discuss a little further in a minute. But Java is sort of, in a way, is more challenging for people nowadays that are Java developers. It looks like Java may not be the tool of choice for companies or for data scientists, etc., when they tackle machine learning. So Java developers might feel a little bit left out. But even before that, a lot of Java developers, they know Java, but they don't feel that they know enough about machine learning and how to get started. The idea of that low-hanging book was to provide a few concepts. What is machine learning? What is supervised machine learning, which is perhaps the most common way to create applications. And then I went there and showed 3 Java tools that are a good way to get started. And I can just mention them quickly. H2O Flow is a way to create an application interactively via GUI, and then generate a Java object from it that you can embed in your project. Then we have DeepNet's IDE, which has all kind of wizards and let you just answer a few questions and can create an application for you. And it is actually made by another member of our group, but is not here today, unfortunately. We may have him in the future. I'm sure we will have him in one of the future talks. And then there is DJL, which is Deep Java Learning, which is an AWS project that has some aspects that you can get started very quickly, even though it is not a trivial project, but it's one of the best ways to get started if you are a Java developer that wants to go and deploy some quite sophisticated applications that were already developed, and this just wraps them with Java and gives you a very easy way to deploy it and use it and perhaps modify it somewhat to your needs. So I'll stop share, so you can see the code here again. You can go here and you can come to this web page. You can download each one of these books. They're all free books. They're not like real heavy books. I think that leads us also to what I wanted to discuss a little bit more with you guys, the subject of Java and AI/machine learning, which is something I think all of us are sort of somewhat passionate about promoting it, because still the world is ruled by Python nowadays. And on the other hand, you have a lot of Java shops or Java developers, a lot of companies that introducing Python or other languages to their infrastructure and DevOps, etc., and getting new talent and having to mediate between the two can cause a friction that they prefer not to have. So having good and tried and true ways to do things with Java, it can be a valuable thing. So all of us actually have some kind of experience with that. And Suyash, as an Oracle guy, you are pretty much into that, in the middle of it. So
yeah, so I'd like to make a correction. I just wanted to say that you mentioned the world is ruled by Python, which is not true. It is in the enterprise, definitely it's ruled by Java. Java is leading language, especially when you look at big businesses and application. Python is definitely ruling the machine learning space these days.
That's what I meant. It's ruling the machine learning space, not the enterprise, of course. And that's what causes the friction, because companies that do enterprise software, they may not, it's not necessarily a good idea for them to enter Python into the mix, introduce Python. Oh, you're mute, I'm sorry.
Suyash, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is, you know, would you like me to talk more about that? I'm happy to talk more?
Yes, more about perhaps what you do. You actually presented in the past. You presented deep learning with Java, but
Yeah,
you can tell us more about what you do.
sure. Yeah, I had a great pleasure to present at your meetup in Florida virtually. Would love to, come back and speak at meetups after the situation becomes normal. But what I focus on is very similar in the larger context to what you were mentioning or Manny was mentioning. But I'm not, working for myself or working with clients for that matter. I'm more working as one to many. So the idea is to help many Java developers who want to build modern Java apps. So not the old school monolithic applications, that are running on large servers like Spring MVC, or in Oracle terminology, we have this server called WebLogic. And I used to be one of those engineers who would write WebLogic applications, part of my team, and giant code base. But nowadays the software is more modularized. It's can have different technologies even for certain piece of software. It could be in Scala or could be in Java. Could be some aspect could be in Python. So how do you create such an architecture and then use cloud computing to benefit from it? Because if you don't understand cloud computing, it can also be expensive in some aspect, or it can uh, be complicated to learn. So there are many tools, they call them cloud native technologies these days, which are technologies born after the cloud era, like serverless technology, or how to write microservices. And there are Java frameworks these days very popular around those, Peladon, Micronaut, and a few others, that helps you write these lightweight, modularized Java applications, which generally are broken down into these microservices. And then they can, of course, run anywhere. And a lot of cloud providers, including our cloud, we show you how you can deploy it on our cloud easily and don't have to manage anything. Cloud manages for you. So yeah, so I talk about from that context, and machine learning comes in the picture from an engineering point of view. How do you take the machine learning models and then deploy them into production in your, let's say, integrate them with your Java application, perhaps? Could be as a microservice, could be as a serverless function, could be as a separate process altogether running on a separate environment. And you can connect to that, and then where would the data sit, and how do you fetch the data that is required, both for testing, training, and in production when you're doing, when you're deploying the system in real world. Yeah, so I'm very interested in machine learning. The industry term is called ML ops or ML engineering, and I've been learning about it myself and sharing knowledge. And not there's so much. I'm not a data scientist. I don't have that knowledge so much, but more try to come at it from software engineering side of things.
Cool. Well, so what do we think 2021 is going to bring us? I think you're mute, Eyal.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Go on. You were saying something.
No, you want to say something interesting. So, indeed, what do you think of 2021?
Yeah, what do you think 2021 is going to bring for us as software engineers, Java developers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, AI enthusiasts? The whole gimmicks, including magicians like Suyash, who's going to do us some magic trick at some point, either at the end of the podcast or after that.
Yes, magic. Yes, I happy to do that. Maybe at the end we'll do something. I think machine learning is definitely here to stay. It's becoming more relevant, but like we were chatting offline, that it is also not hammer, because
Everything is not a nail that you hit it with a hammer. Yeah. Or you don't use a crane to crack a nut.
Exactly.
And the state of art solutions in that world have brought embarrassments, and there are a lot of blog posts and talks given on that. Some of the smartest people have deployed some of the most failed models out there, and there's a lot of conversations in that space.
Yeah, that's true. And having said that, but some people think, is this a fad? Is this gonna just a bubble right now? But it looks like it's not. It looks like there is a lot of value. I think we're still uncovering that value and realizing the pros and the cons of it. So my prediction would be that it would become much more easier to build and deploy these models. We probably don't need to learn about very complicated algorithms. The ML models they already exist in a lot of aspects through AI services on the cloud, or where you can just submit an image via REST API and it gives you the prediction, so you don't have to train it yourself. It become much more easier, and for anyone to customize it for their data set, because that's a big challenge to deploy these models, train them. You need experts, and then you need large amount of data, and I think there are people trying to solve that problem.
Yeah, I think you're spot on that, because the software engineering, the infrastructure, the DevOps, those kinds of ML ops, those kind of angles are a solved problem already, because we've already been doing that for decades now, right? As compared to AI, ML, data science, natural language processing, we are quite new to it. We're not as experienced at those topics as we are with software engineering and DevOps and the infrastructure and data center management. And those are more solved problems, and I think they are going to get more and more automated, and in fact they might also be AI assisted at some point. But the real AI challenge that we are trying to solve is the generalization of AI, or general AI, or whatever the terminology is. That is still a work in progress, and that still needs work and help. And maybe a lot of this automation, including discipline from people, will help us with that. But 2021 will be, I don't know, it'll be more minimalistic maintenance, sustenance kind of a year, rather than growth and creation, in my view. So it's like all the things that we've built so far, we need to be able to, first of all, I'm thinking that we got to look at it as a minimalistic approach, as opposed to what we did in the last few years. Like, we went bonkers with everything, and that's where all the hype and everything came from, especially in the AI ML space. And maybe 2021 will be different, or would have to be different, given that we already had a year that we had to slow down on so many spaces, right? Like, we've never had the whole year we didn't have conferences that were where we would meet people, and I don't think we're going to have that for some time. So, and we're also slowed down with everything else. I don't see people jumping about so much with all the model hype and AI hype, and NERPS was online as well this year, right? Imagine, that's the biggest conference in the world that happens face to face in where does it happen? North America, right? And that was offline this year. So I'm imagining we're going to be slowing down and then catching up with momentum for some time, and which also will reflect in the work that we're going to be doing. And that's still a bit abstract and high level in my description, but you can translate that into more specifics and see what that might entail.
So I've been working from home since March, and at least it will be until next March before they re-evaluate in my company if they want the people to go back. So for a lot of people and a lot of companies, I think things have changed during 2020, and remote working became basically prevails now, and that also led to policy changes in how you hire people, and people were hired not based on a geographic location in many cases, and that opened up the market, both as the company could access more people, but if you were talented, you could be accessed by more companies without having to relocate. So I'm not sure what will happen with that. I think that it will probably, or I think the general consensus is that it's not going to change right back. It will probably remain, some of it at least will just is with us to stay. I look at it also from another view of a developer that likes to go to conferences. So now you had a lot more access to conferences and to user groups. Everything became virtual. But I also see that on the other hand, it sort of becomes maybe too much sometimes, and people are just they have just too many choices, or just have enough getting emails or finding out there is more presentations, more conferences. Do you have maybe any ideas or advice how to find the right ones, or how to zone in on the correct on the most beneficial for a developer in general? I don't know, it may be too difficult a question, but if you have any thoughts, that come forward with that.
That's a very good one, Eyal, because I think this whole new lifestyle that we were maneuvered into taking on without an option or a choice will lead to a whole new set of value-added services that never existed. So now, because we can access so many things and our choices are like broadened by so many folds, then just like we have local services that we will always access and we won't go to global services, but we also have global services like we can access through Amazon and eBay and other services. But these are becoming umbrella services that bring together all other services and they curate them, and then we trust these services and we just pick and choose the ones we want. I'm thinking with all the other things that have not happened or have not been put in a basket or in an umbrella, like for example conferences. So I'm thinking there'll be a meta conference provider that will farm out or will connect to all the other conferences and maybe curate and select and put together things in the. It's just like a TV channel, right? Like a cable service provider. They subscribe to all the different cable services out there, and you have various packages. And then with your remote, you choose what you want when you want. And depending on the ratings and the advertisements they make, those are the ones you get drawn to more as opposed to other ones. So I think we're going into that era, even with the conferences or anything else which is having a similar nature, where the quantity of production is so high and the masses that they can reach is so large, and for the masses the choices are so much that it's a menu to many connection that needs to happen at a more customized level. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's kind of what I was thinking of. So think of an Amazon for conference service provider, an eBay for conference service provider.
Yeah, I think because of pandemic, everything is becoming virtual, has definitely exponentially increased the number of events and brought down the cost. That's one great positive thing that has happened. I've attended a lot of conferences actually that I wouldn't have otherwise, because I would have to fly, take time off work, but the price was very low or free, and I could just attend a few sessions. But on the other hand, like Manny mentioned, we live in the era of information overload, and there's too much information to access, and more is being generated because anyone, like we're doing it right now. Just you can talk and record and put content out there. So the question becomes like which conference or event to go after, or which information to consume, and where is the highest value. Could it be like a meta thing, like you're suggesting? Maybe like somebody curates and shows like these are the top talks or the events to go to, and you can ignore all the others, or
more personalized, right? Can be that as well.
Yeah, or even using AI and ML to distill it down to a summary or key points, and that text we can read much faster and easier than we have to wait for the whole video to watch. So I think there will be some solutions, but right now the top conferences in your space, if you want to look at just there's so many to name. Like the Java, within the Java space, there are many. There's Dev Nexus, like our own Code One conferences, because we have the people who built the Java language and they come and speak, give keynotes.
There's Java 2 days coming next week.
Yeah, you're speaking there. So
yeah. Well, it's going to be a discussion session. They're not having presentations. They're going to have discussion sessions like the one we're having just now.
Right.
Which one was that?
Java 2 days. You're free to join. It's a free conference. It's happening for 3 days. I'll send the link is already on the Slack channel. I can send it to you as well while you're at it.
Yeah. There is a whole bunch of conferences. I mean, I would definitely try to go to the top ones because try to save time and get still want to meet and network with people and learn what's new and cutting edge. But even the meetups, I won't discount the meetups, because sometimes you can hear great speakers at meetups and it's more intimate settings. Yeah.
Now there are some good platforms now, or some reasonable platforms for conferencing, online conferencing, virtual conferencing that somewhat simulate the feeling of having a stage and having rooms and having a networking or conversation, hallway conversation where you randomly can meet people and converse for let's say a minute or two, whatever it's configured. So you can sort of get the feel of the conference, but it's still not the same. The last conference I got to go to was DevNexus 2020, I think, just before. It was on February 2020, and I still miss that feeling of being there with a lot of people and mingling with people and seeing presentation in person. But I guess until that is back, the virtual platforms are somewhat of a replacement. I think that some of them or some of the conferences work better than others. I have to say that there were some conferences that I participated and it wasn't advertised, but it was obvious that the sessions were pre-recorded. And the speaker was there to answer. So while the speaker was actually talking and it was the pre-recorded talk, you could ask questions in the chat and the speaker would answer right away because the speaker would be there listening to the questions. But it still felt like it was not the real thing. I would prefer a speaker actually talking live. I'm not sure what other. Do you have any other suggestions for improvement or other just feedback? And maybe Adam is about to join us. Let's check that.
Yeah, Manny, you want to go? I've experienced that both from organizer. When we organize a lot of our events, especially virtual, they are pre-recorded for most part because the level of production and the quality, and to counter the things that can go wrong during the live broadcast. So we record them and then we present them. And yes, speakers are there because what are they going to do? They've already done the recording. They're there to answer question, and maybe they'll come on camera live to introduce the topic, and then they'll play the video because most people are listening. I've been asked to do the same, and I also have a mixed feeling. I can see the benefit of it, but it does take away something. Like people can go to YouTube and watch so many videos. If they're coming at that point to watch, they want to see something live. So I think it's still being figured out. Like, yeah, it's pros and cons to both approaches. I'm still not sure which one is best. What about you, Manny?
Yeah, I think so. There's two sides to it, and I can understand both sides. So, for example, I mean, this whole year, I'm used to going to a lot of meetups, and like I do more meetups than I do conferences and presentations, and I'm exactly experiencing the same thing where what Eyal was saying with the conference experience. I am experiencing that the meetups, that the webinars I attend and the conferences I've attended, even though many of them were free, I was invited. In one or two, they've even paid for my tickets. Now, first of all, the choices are so high, so I don't know which ones to go to. And then I know they're recorded, so I'm not so inclined to go to them. And also, I'm not meeting anybody in there or talking to anybody or even talking to the speaker. So my whole motivation of going there is reduced. Then the way I'm going to ask questions is going to be through a written chat, and then they don't understand the question because of the context. Then I got to repeat, and then the messages are lost, and the quality of the answer is lost, as opposed to, like, me speaking in the mic or speaking across, and then there are others listening to the same question. That whole interaction is lost, right? And similarly, I've been attending more hands-on sessions as well, and that has deteriorated even more, because in a hands-on session, interaction is must, right? It's not like you're disturbing the speaker. You got to ask questions. You got to get somebody's attention to show you around. And some of these things, like there are technical issues as well, right, where something fails. And in an open room or in a lab, you wouldn't have this, right? You would have somebody showing you around, or and you don't have that at all. So if it's a webinar, it's half the problem, but if it's a hands-on session, the problem is even more. And so from the other side, this is what I can understand. But when we are presenting, it's the same thing, right? The quality of production, and so many things can go wrong. Like, when I was presenting for the Groundbreaker tour, I did not have my slides on, because what happens, I pressed escape and Zoom removed the slides from presentation mode, and I did not realize that. And then the host had to say, can you repeat that again after like 3 minutes, because your slides didn't come up, right? Now that's the least of the problem, right? Because what if the whole recording, there was no sound, and he didn't recognize, he didn't notice, and I didn't notice, and then the whole recording is gone without sound. So we could have those problems. So and so many things, like, for example, I could have a choppy internet connection the whole time we're trying to fix it, and so we wasted 30 minutes, right? And the presentation is only for 45 minutes. So to counter for those problems, and not everybody in the world has the same quality of internet, right? To counter for those problems, I think there's both sides to it. You pre-record it, and then you have the speaker available, but then that brings down the quality massively. It improves the likelihood of getting maybe more presentable content, but then not the same feel that we had when we had presentations going on, right?
Yeah.
So there's that two sides to it.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah. It's I feel personally, future, like, conference organizers and events should do both, if for those, because it has also allowed a lot of people who couldn't travel or be there somewhere for whatever reason, if they can stream the event or record or share something, not just make it completely physical, that would benefit both, I think, both the conference organizers and the attendees, right? Because some people still want to come and they'll pay the money and fly, but some people who cannot travel, they would be able to also attend that way.
So I've been on two platforms. One of them is called gather.town, and the other one is called spatial.chat. And there are many such platforms. And conference organizers like ODC, ODSE, they have built their own platform, which gives you a feel of you're entering the convention hall, you're entering the info sector, and both Spatial Chat and GatherTown have this map-like view, and you can see different people walking by you. They've got their names popping up. There's a place you can go and sit. You can actually go in front of somebody and say hello. The video will show up, and they can actually be in ignore mode, so you can't connect with them. And that, all of that is getting developed. So I'm thinking we are coming up with these alternative solutions, whether we like it or not, to fill up for the real world kind of issues that we are missing, or the real world practical things that we are missing out.
There's also VR experiences like that, where with the Mozilla Hub, where you can go inside VR. And
this is what I was going to suggest as well, but I think I've heard that there are some repercussions doing that. Like, you can't be in that zone for a long time. It takes up a lot of your energy, right? Because it really gives you a buzz after you've been 10 minutes into a VR session. But that's something that we could look into, because that's something will give us kind of a real world experience as well, isn't it? I don't know. People will experiment with it and see. You'll see. You'll be surprised to know how that might kick off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're muted.
I noticed we were hoping Adam would join us, and he didn't yet. He wasn't able to yet. It looks like we can we can maybe talk a little bit about the project that he was involved with without him being here. What do you think?
We can, yeah. You mean you're talking about Tribuo?
Yeah.
Or we save it or have him come next meeting and present maybe a little bit about it.
Well,
Okay.
or Eyal, what you could do is you could have a separate session with him and then stitch it up with this video. It'll just be a little bit longer.
Okay, that is possible. We'll see.
Because initially this is what we were thinking, like we would do a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 and like stitch them up together. This may end up being like that, right?
Right. So let's just mention that Tribuo that Adam was part of the development is a machine learning Java library, open source, Apache license, has been used within Oracle internally for a long time. So it's a mature framework and it's capable of doing a lot of things, and including importing models from Python, other languages, so things that you develop in other means, but also that you can develop things from scratch. So that is a very promising tool from Oracle, and any Java developer can start using it. So
there are some good examples on the GitHub repository as well.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
There are some good examples, notebooks of how to use Tribuo to do these different machine learning techniques and apply them into classification, regression, anomaly detection solutions using Tribuo.
Right, and the concept of a notebook is something that you have brought in the past is
yes,
can be done with Java now. What people are used to doing with Python usually, you can do notebook with Java.
Yep.
Okay, so anybody has any more that you want to discuss?
I'm happy to show a magic trick as we conclude. Since
that'll be great.
Yes,
Yeah,
I am not sure how to give you the more of the stage. I can remove us out of the picture if you want. Then you will have the whole screen. Do you want me to do that? Let's see if I can do that.
Screen share. If I can screen share, then I can do the track.
well, yeah, he might just make us disappear. So why doesn't he do that?
That
it saves you the effort, right?
Yeah, if you screen share, that will work.
Okay, so let me start that.
All right.
So tell me when you can see my screen now, right? You can see a clock on your screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'd like everyone who's watching this video, including you guys right now in real time, and we'll try this, and it should work, hopefully. This is a fun little trick. So I'd like you to take your finger and point it and actually put it right on the screen at the number 12. Okay? Put it at number 12. And I need one person to just kind of tell me, because I cannot see you guys. I'm doing the trick with you. Manny, can you just say yes when you're done with the steps I'm going to mention? Just a few steps we're going to try.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, and then everybody, please follow along. So Manny, your finger is at number 12, right?
Yep.
Perfect. Now we're going to go clockwise in this clock. And I'd like you to, Manny, think of any number between 1 to 6. Okay, so don't do anything right now. Let me explain it to you. So let's say if I start off number 1, I'm going to move clockwise one letter at a time. So 1, I would spell ONE, and I would start at number 1, number 2, number 3. So I would, at number 3, my finger would be number 3, and I've spelled ONE1, right? So just like that, let's start with number 12. Your finger is there. Think of any number between 12 and 6, and spell that number, and you're going to move that many steps clockwise. And let me know when you're done.
All right.
Okay, great. Now you should be at a number, any number. And from that point, whatever number you are, so let's say if you're number 3, you spell this new number. So it would be THREE, and each letter you move down clockwise. Move down or move up. So go ahead, do that.
Got it.
Perfect.
Done. Yeah.
Now you're at a new number, right? And another random number, could be any number. And let's do one last time. Let's have you keep moving clockwise and spell this number one letter at a time.
Okay.
Done? Perfect. Eli, done?
Yeah.
Eli,
Yes.
yeah, perfect. Yes. Okay, great. Awesome. So I have a feeling now. Keep your finger there. And generally, if I was to do it, I would erase some numbers. If I do this trick in person, but I'm going to virtually remove a few numbers from your screen. And the one number I'm going to keep is, let me get a feeling, it's actually this one. It would be number 1. If my prediction is correct, you should be at number 1.
Hey,
Yeah.
you should become a machine learning model. What are you doing your current job?
Amazing.
We need to hire you for 100% accuracy.
But it's
Especially this was an unseen data set.
it's because we're all binary people. It's either 0 or 1, right?
That's, for yeah. So I hope you enjoyed it.
That was
And
good.
yeah.
Hey, I didn't see any pigeons coming out of hats and handkerchiefs coming out of your sleeves. So I mean, I thought it was going to be a magic trick like that.
It's all digital magic.
Oh, this is the modern digital age magic. I got it. Cool. I think we should do some more of this once a month, and hopefully next time Adam and Zoran and others can join in as well.
Oh, looks like
and we'll
Alan.
have some... Is he?
We were almost going to.
Oh, there he is.
Hello.
Welcome, Adam. Hello.
Oh,
Finally.
That,
all right.
We were thinking already to have you separately because we thought you couldn't make it, but I'm very glad you joined.
yeah, sorry, my wife's appointment was running an hour later than it should have been, so I was doing childcare.
So tell us about we have hopefully people watching it that are Java people, machine learning people, enterprise machine learning, and we said a little bit about what you have been doing, but not much. Can you tell us about yourself and what you have been doing?
Sure. So I'm a member of Oracle Labs. I work in the machine learning research group, and sort of I have a PhD in machine learning. I do active machine learning research, and recently I've been doing a lot of software, mainly in Java. So this year has been pretty good, actually. So I wrote the Java API for Microsoft's ONNX runtime, which allows you to deploy models that were trained in lots of different libraries. They have lots of converters into ONNX format, and you can deploy those in Java now. This year, that became a supported part of that library, so it wasn't an experimental feature anymore, and we got parity with the C# API, which is where we were aiming for.
Can you elaborate on the ONNX format?
Sure. So the ONNX format is the open neural network exchange format. It initially started off as a way of exporting models out of PyTorch, and I think maybe MXNet. And it sort of initially started out as a deep learning model format to allow interchange between PyTorch and TensorFlow. However, it now has grown slightly, so you can use it to score lots of other models that are not just deep learning ones. You can score tree ensembles, linear models, SVMs, a bunch of things. And you can convert scikit-learn models and scikit-learn pipelines, although not the full set of pipelines, into ONNX format and just deploy them using anything that can read ONNX. So it could be another Python process. You could deploy it in PyTorch, or you could deploy it using the ONNX runtime, or other things that let you read and write ONNX model formats. And you can export to ONNX from, as I said, PyTorch, TensorFlow, I think MXNet, XGBoost. There's converters for libsvm, and sort of a large number of libraries.
So ultimately, you can deploy them in your Java programs as well.
Yes. So we last year we contributed the initial Java support, and then we spent. I think it became supported properly in the spring of this year, and so we spent the time up until then sort of achieving parity with the APIs and getting the C# API, the Java API up to where the C# and the Python APIs are. So that was sort of useful. We built that internally at Oracle at the start of 2019, around the time that the library came out, because it had a nice well-defined C API, and that was pretty useful for some of the things we were doing. And mostly it was useful for the thing that we did next, which was release the Tribuo Java machine learning library in September this year. Tribuo is kind of, we're sort of aiming to be like an enterprise version of scikit-learn. So we want to try and have the breadth of scikit-learn. We want to like touch most sort of standard machine learning problems. We're not really focusing on deep learning too much, and I'll get to what we're doing for that later. And so Tribuo sort of has a sort of breadth of models. So we do linear models, we do tree ensembles, trees, naive Bayes, like the sort of basic things that you want to try on a system. We have interfaces to TensorFlow and to ONNX runtime. So that means that you can deploy models trained in Python or other sort of languages, anything that can export ONNX. You can deploy those in Tribuo, in Java, and they look like every other Tribuo model, and they behave like other Tribuo models. And you can sort of pull in things. You know, we think that's pretty useful because a lot of the time data science work, like the exploratory data analysis, tends to happen in languages other than Java, but you need to deploy it in Java. And that can be a right pain. But it's a lot easier if you just export the model and then load it in the new system. So the other thing, I said enterprise during that sentence, that paragraph rather, and that's because Tribuo is focused on making it a little bit easier to integrate machine learning into a large system. So a lot of machine learning libraries expect float arrays as inputs and produce float arrays or primitive types as outputs. And it's up to the developer who integrates them to try and figure out how to get the appropriate floats, how to arrange them in the array in the right way, how to deal with the fact you got a float array back out, which isn't what you care about. What you care about is a prediction for an object or like a specific type that you can work with. So Tribuo has types on both ends and a lot more metadata and tracking around the system. So you can keep tabs on models, you know where they are, you know where they've been, you know what kind of inputs they're expecting, you know what kind of outputs they can produce. And that makes it easier to integrate into larger systems. At least it does in our experience. The library is still fairly new in terms of open source. So we haven't had too many other people sort of building it into large systems yet. But we've, you know, there's been a promising response from the community, and we plan to continue to build it out over time. You know, we're working on the 4.1 release, which will probably come early next year, that incorporates a bunch of various performance benefits, a couple of extra models, and some sort of other things that were sort of led by the initial reaction from the community to it. And the final thing I was doing this year is the TensorFlow JVM group, which was spun out from Google now and is a community-led project to build the TensorFlow interface for the Java platform and the JVM more widely. We had our first release at the end of September, I think, from that code base. And the aim there is that the TensorFlow API didn't really support training very well, which was kind of a problem because we'd like to be able to train models in Java as well as deploy them. So you could do it, but it was very difficult last year. In the spring, myself and others in the group sort of integrated code to allow you to train models purely in Java. So you can design your model, your deep learning system in TensorFlow, in Java on the JVM. You can train it on the JVM, you can deploy it on the JVM, and everything just works. We support loading in a subset of the TensorFlow model formats. We don't quite support all of them yet because we haven't finished building out the library support, but we're working towards that. And then the sort of aim there is to give a good sort of first-class citizen, to make Java a first-class citizen in the TensorFlow sort of ecosystem, which at the moment, like before, it would only really support deploying of already trained models. So we had the first release from that, which allows you to now train systems. We're sort of going through a fairly large restructuring and refactoring of the code base, fixing a lot of the things in the type system because it hadn't really evolved too much. But there's a lot more sort of there's a lot more work and drive happening on the project now, and it's sort of moving forward quite rapidly. So that's sort of good to see.
Okay, so we can stay for a minute longer, but I'll just end the broadcast. So anybody who's been watching us, thank you for being with us, and we will be back. and happy holidays, everybody.